hoodies on. It got cold out real quick. But that's definitely not stopping me in today's video. This part of the truck is so long, we have to divide it in 3 different episodes. We're talking about the frame, specifically the center of the frame, where the cab is currently bolted to the frame. We're going to go from a completely rusty, bad-looking frame to a cleaned up, presentable, strong, good-looking frame. And to actually get an idea of how long this took, let's go back to July, I believe, to when the body and frame were completely separated. And it was warm outside, because I'll take that any day right now. So time-wise, it is the beginning of July. I just got done fixing all the major rod on the truck cab, and it's 100% strong once again. And I'm getting this close to putting the cab and frame back together. So I think it'd be a good time to take care of the frame now and then put the body back on the frame. So that's what we're gonna do. Alright, so the main concern of the frame is the center eyelets. The holes are much better than they should be. And these front eyelets are the same way. And then we get that giant hole right at the very bottom.
What a hole!
And we have a hole starting on the inner driver's side rail. So the plan of attack is to replace both of these front eyelets and then repair those ones. So here is my drawing of everything. And these are to identify these mounts. So this is like looking at the level, the 2 lines in a level and the bubble. That one's way out in space. These ones are actually pretty close. I also took and measured these 4 eyelets to make sure they were square, and sure enough, they were square. This is my identification to show that everything is zeroed. And after looking at this frame, this truck has absolutely 0 collision damage. So why measure the frame? Well, for one, to make sure it wasn't hit. As I was taking this truck apart, I looked at everything and nothing looked like it was hit, but people can be sneaky. After measuring the frame, it is proven that the Carfax was right. This truck has 0 collision damage. Well, not 0, but to the point where it showed up as an accident. And since we're repairing 2 of the eyelets and replacing 2 of the eyelets, it's always a good idea to make sure everything is square before you start. That way everything lines right up. If you measure the frame and it's out of square, then you're kind of screwed at that point. But always double checking your measurements and making sure the frame is square is the best thing you can do. Now, knowing that everything is true and I have my measurements, I can start cutting all the bad out and replacing it with the good. So that's what I'm gonna do. So these are my replacement frame mounts. They are Dormans. They are both driver sides, and the only thing that really matters is the driver side, because you have your grounds that go on this mount. Your parking brake cable goes through this mount as well. It really matters on the driver's side. Passenger side doesn't really matter. It's just on the frame to support the cab. So the passenger side doesn't matter. I am okay with the driver's side. And to be honest with you, these were 39 bucks a piece on eBay. And there was somebody selling these eyelets for like 200 bucks. These were cheaper and they came in within a couple days. So this seemed like the best bang for the buck. Alright, so there were a couple spots at the very front of the frame that were extremely questionable, to the point where I just cut everything out and put in some fresh 3/16 plates. How bad was it? Take a look. Like that bad. So this was all on the driver's side of frame of the truck. This plate right here was a previous repair that I had since cut off because it looked like this. This was on the driver outer side of the frame. I decided to tap it with a hammer, you know, for reasons. And it was thin. And this is where the bracket goes for the body. And this was on the inside, where me just jacking the truck up and down fatigued this enough to make a hole. And this was piggybacked up against this. So all of this is basically junk. Here was another repair for the passenger side. And that's what the inside looked like. It was starting to blister real bad right near the welds of this plate. So yeah, this all gotta go. This also doesn't help the frame situation. This is actually a bracket that goes inside the frame rail for running boards. I had to pull 2 of these out of the frame. And yeah, they don't help it. Also with a combination of dirt, rust flakes, and rocks, this was starting to get worse after the repair. So this kitchen knife looking template is what I'm using to patch the very bottom of the frame. Right along here is where the factory seams meet. So I am cutting right near the weld of the seam and making this fit in there nice and snug. And this will basically hug the bottom. Get a good shot right there. So this is one of the few templates I've made for this frame. And I already did this on the driver's side. It worked beautifully. I got one more patch to do on the passenger side, and it is this piece. And after it has been repaired, and I know all the welds are in good shape, we're going to continue on and put that mount on the frame. Alright, so even before I even got to this step, I made sure that the frame was sitting level first across the rails on both sides and then across. I checked it on the front and near the back, and it was all sitting perfectly level. Then I followed all my measurements and found out where the driver's side mount needed to be using this exact same method. I used 2 levels to gauge where the mount needs to sit, and then I used this big level to simulate the cab. And I already got it tacked in place. I got it all measured, and that is reading perfectly level. Yeah, definitely an overcomplicated way to figure out where cab mounts need to be, but it works. So since that bracket is sitting exactly where it needs to be, I'm just going to get that bracket burned in place, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So this is one of the 2 center cab mount brackets. I got myself props on the cut. That's pretty good. Right up in here is pretty thin, and I don't like it. So that's why I cut it off. And then with that, I made a cardboard template. And with that cardboard template, I made not 1, but 2 blanks. And after I get these 2 welded on the chassis solid, I'm going to take the template and draw out the center mark and circle for the hole saw bit. The bit size I'm using is 2 3/8. I should go out and get a size that is smaller, that way it doesn't look too bad, but I checked it alongside the mounts. There's going to be plenty of room for the mounts to actually hold on to, so I'm not exactly worried about that. And so all I gotta do is clean these up some and then burn them on the chassis. I had since moved the frame from outside to inside the garage, that way I could actually get repairs done. There was a lot of prep work done. You can see all that shiny metal. There was actually wax on this frame. GM uses wax to coat their frames to get in real teeny tiny crevices and pores paint can't. And theoretically, it does protect the frame to a point until it dries up, and it kind of does this. But tons of wax, tons of rust, tons of flakes, tons of dirt, tons of rocks. And I am at this point. Everything has been scuffed up, it has been cleaned, it's all prepped, and it's ready for paint. Alright, so like 4 days went by. All those days I was painting and getting stuff set, and I will tell you what, this frame looks untouched. So yeah, the satin black was probably the best choice I've made, because if you look at the sheen of the actual frame, it looks like it's wax coated. Alright, so now I'm basically at the reassemble point. I gotta put everything back on the chassis that came off. So that is the wiring harnesses, plastic clips, brake line, fuel line, ABS module, torsion bars, torsion bar cross member, and the torsion bar cross member eyelets. There's a lot of stuff to do. I'm gonna get started. The first thing I'm gonna put on is the torsion bar eyelets. The original eyelets themselves, the brackets were actually in really good shape. It's just the driver's side bushing separated from the metal sleeve, and it was also $50 for a new bushing versus $32 for 2 new bushings, brackets, and a corresponding hardware. So I think this was the better deal. Something else I'm doing too to try to help preserve the frame and its components is anywhere I can, I'm putting grease on parts. So this is an example, and because this frame had wax on it originally to seal everything and make sure nothing got rusty, in theory, this is supposed to simulate that. Then wherever the grease just squeezed out at, take a rub along the seam to help seal it furthermore. Next I'm gonna go back on the frame or the fuel lines. This is a Dorman stainless steel fuel line kit. This was $404 off Rock Auto, which was actually the cheapest I was able to find this exact kit. It's pretty well engineered. I mean, I don't like the unions right here, but right up here, where these flare nuts are, these are where these hoses go. So in hindsight, if I ever have to pull the engine out of this truck again, I can just disconnect it from these points and keep this side on the engine and keep this on the frame. That's pretty smart. This bracket was all rusty and crappy looking. Base coat of the encapsulator and a coat of gloss black made it look 1,000 times better. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. Last thing that I need done, just gotta tighten these union nuts up, and that should be the fuel line complete until it comes time for the engine side of things. But yeah, I mean, not too bad of a kit. I like them. I got a feeling because this thing was just taken off the frame and was taken apart, left on the inside and all shook up and all this stuff. High possibility this thing's gonna throw an ABS light when it's back together. Just saying. I think I should plug it in while I have it. Sitting right here. That piece went right there. That went there. Somebody was so kind to lose the lock retainer for that plug. Hopefully it stays in. Yeah, just look at this. Yeah. That's what we're talking about right there. So next thing I'm going to install are the brake lines. This truck, when I bought it, the previous owner did do brake lines on this truck. Here's a brand new stainless steel line right here. But they're never supposed to have a union. And that bracket's not really supposed to be loose. Yeah, when you say he did brake lines in an hour, that kind of scared me. So I got a whole brand new stainless steel fuel line kit from Rock Auto. If anybody knows, doing brake lines on these trucks really suck.
Auto sucks. It really sucks.
And honestly, with the body and bed off the frame, it's gonna make this job a lot easier. And I know this is going to be a tedious job, so I'm going to break away and come back when I got it figured out. And a little tip for you guys, when you take brake line off, make sure you label where they go. So there's front left, front right, and rear. Your front main coming out of the front portion of the master cylinder, and then the rear portion. And take some time and clean these fittings up, and be very careful threading these in, because this is a very soft material they use, and these strip up pretty easy. Ask me how I know. 3 hours later, I got all of the brake lines put on. And I have to say something, Dorman, you have to figure out how to bend these lines up so they fit exact. These lines were close, but not close enough. So everywhere you see zip ties, that's where they rub. And I literally can't get them to bend apart anymore so they don't rub. This is the only spot where it doesn't rub, is right down here. But anywhere where there's these double zip ties, that's where they rub. It gives just enough room for them to have airspace and they don't wear into each other. But like, they're not exact fit, but I have them running as best as I can get them. They're nice and neat. They're not going to cause an issue. I'm going to call them good. A lot of people may not like the way I did this, but if you've been at this for 3 hours, you said every single curse word in the book, and you throw in a couple tools, you kind of have to say it is what it is, and it is what it is. So I am happy with this. It's better than what the truck had. Everything's nice and neat. It looks great. Now we're gonna move on to the torsion bars. So here's the right-hand side torsion bar. I don't think these are any different, but it's not a bad idea to keep them organized and also pay attention to their orientation. These ones actually have a mark on them, this white painted face, plus it also gives the arrow towards where it's supposed to be loaded. And I use an air hammer on this, so this is all shiny metal that got hit. That's the best I could do. Can you tell that I'm annoyed and tired? Been at this for a while. And I just painted these, so I really don't want them to get scratched up. I'm going to slide them in. Probably like right there. These are most definitely going to get scratched up, but hey, at least they looked good for a week. Okay. There we go. So yeah, these only go in one way. There's a small hole that's supposed to point toward the back of the frame, and there's a wide opening with the lip supposed to point toward the front of the frame. That's where the torsion bar goes in. And this tiny little hole is just big enough for you to get a hammer or chisel to break it free. And I can see what I'm doing. Yeah, I definitely should have put the cross member in first before the ABS pump. Oh well. So these keys I got, they're actually lowering keys. They are supposedly a 1 to 3 inch drop, but they usually don't recommend going lower than 2, so we're gonna run these at a 2 inch drop, and we're gonna find out how low this truck's gonna sit when everything's back together. But I figured I had to take all this off, might as well get the keys I want and put them in here. Well, it couldn't have gone any smoother. Wow. Oh my gosh, I can feel already these are definitely lowering keys. Wow. Yeah, these are these are definitely lowering keys. Realistically, you're supposed to have a torsion bar loading and unloading tool. It looks like a giant C-clamp. It pushes on this bar to actually load it. And yeah, that's jeez. I can literally put this in literally without having to use the loading tool. Hopefully these are a good choice for what I'm using them for. They were like 75 bucks. It was definitely a battle, but it's honestly nice to see the frame back on its two front wheels with no jacks or jack stands supporting it. Let's get one last look at how good this looks, because this is all going to be covered by a cab. So everything I just painted and put on, it's never really going to be seen like this ever again. So give one good look, everybody, because this is all going to get covered up. Well, if you've seen the last episode, you know the body went back on the frame successfully and the interior is installed. And with that said, that's really it with the center of the frame. If anything, everything's bolted back down, nice and solid, and everything does look good underneath there. So let's go take a look real quick. Yeah, it's been a couple months, but everything still looks good. It's been a while since I've seen underneath of this thing too, and yeah, I say it still looks good. And because those lowering keys, I really can't fit up front unless I jack the truck up, and I'm not doing that. So yeah, everything looks good. If anyone was wondering if those different cab mounts will work, well, there's your answer. They do work. So yeah, what do we have right now? The cab is rust-free. Everything from the floorboards on down. We also got the frame fixed up. All the holes, which were absolute surprises, got fixed. Everything got cleaned up and painted. New brake and fuel line. I mean, it's getting a lot better. I will say that. But we're not in the home stretch yet, because we still got a long ways to go. In the next episode, we're going to take care of the rear half of the frame. And trust me when I say, things get really interesting. And you'll have to find out in the next video. So if you like what you see, make sure to leave it a like. If you have any question about what I did with this truck, or what I'm doing, or anything, ask down in the comments below. And if you like what you see and you want to show your support, you might as well subscribe. Well, I'm going to end this 3-part video here, and I'll catch you guys next time.